going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Hello, welcome to Known Quantities with Daniel Miller. Today we have a couple of wonderful guests that Daniel will tell you about shortly from across the pond. It's going to be an enjoyable conversation. Please join us. And now I would like to introduce the man of the hour, Danny Miller.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome. My video might be lagging, but as long as you hear me, that's what matters at the moment. Welcome to another episode of Known Quantities. I'm your host, Daniel Miller. Aaron Tesario, our producer extraordinaire. Thank you so much for the introduction. We have a great episode going on today, guys. We have some amazing gentlemen who have agreed to sit down and have a chat. But before that, let's just pay the bills, just a little business. First of all, we do have a podcast. Don't forget, not just my show, but all of UCR shows, as well as Singularity Lab. So wherever you get your podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, follow, review, whatever it'll let you do. That always really, really helps us out. And of course, like and subscribe here on this very channel. That always helps the algorithm out. And of course, ring that bell because it'll remind you when shows are happening. Because if you hadn't noticed, we're not at our usual time. We're at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, but a much more not middle of the night friendly time for our friends across the pond for today. To support our channel, we are a public access channel, so our Patreon links are in the description below. That is a great way to support those of us who use our time for this topic. Everything you donate is greatly appreciated and goes right back into the show. Of course, also super chats are open. That is another great way to support our channel. Thank you to Das Tapes for the lovely music. I always do a little dance as we're starting on here. We do have a merch store, if you haven't checked out yet. Has some really pretty good stuff. I've bought a few things myself. I think they look quite good, regardless of whether, just to wear in public. People don't even know. Start a conversation. And finally, thank you for BlueMarlinChronicles.com. There we go. Aaron's got a mug right there, drinking his caffeine in style. Love that.
And I have my UOR hat.
UOR. Is it a misprint? What does that mean?
Well, so the C has such a very tiny little, thank you. Yeah, a little,
You're
such
right.
a tiny little thing that it's not really visible. But that's all right.
Unidentified organism review.
Observable.
I like that. Unidentified or observable review. Great. I like that. Rocking this style. Awesome, guys. Well, if my video doesn't get any better soon, I will make a move because I'm sure this doesn't look great, but we'll see. But without further ado, no need to look at my face anymore. I have two amazing gentlemen joining me today. At first, we have Vinnie Adams. He has been studying the UAP subject for around a decade. In 2020, he started Disclosure Team, a social media outlet for the latest news, photos, videos, and more. And in 2021, he started the podcast Disclosure Team, where he interviews prominent figures in the UAP community. I'm a big fan of that myself. Vinnie, welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And we have one more joining us as well. Max Moszkowicz is a well-known and respected journalist, film director, and producer. He leads the UAP discussion both in the Netherlands and the United States. His YouTube channel, Moszkowicz, has broken big UAP news with former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid and Luis Elizondo. Mr. Max, welcome aboard, sir. How are you?
I'm good, Daniel. How are you? Hey, Vinny, how are you?
Hey, Max. Good, thanks.
Great. Doing great, guys. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on. I've been really excited to have this chat. I'm a fan of both of your work, and I think this will be an interesting hour. So I guess before we hop into kind of doing a little roundtable of some of the events that have been going on, I'm curious, as this community of folks who have really found an interest in this topic, we all just come from such different places. And I was a little curious how each of you got interested in the topic and what led you to delve in deeper.
I'm happy to go first. I think, going back to childhood, I was always a sci-fi fan and loved the idea of something being out there, something else, the unknown. But then I think it was probably, like I said, about a decade ago, I came across some lectures from a UFO conference here in the UK. And it just grabbed my attention. And from there, I started diving into government documents, mainly again here in the UK, but then that led to the US kind of documents. Spent years just looking for answers, never really found anything. I think, we can all relate to that we don't really know anything in particular. And then I think when the pandemic hit, I just decided to start Disclosure Team on Instagram. Never expected it to go anywhere or do anything. And it just kind of snowballed from there, really. And here we are.
I love it. Max, how about you?
Yeah, well, a bit like Vin, I've always been very interested in sci-fi, let's say, thinking about what could be out there. But to be honest, it was really when, the New York Times article dropped that my journalistic heart started pounding in my chest, and I just had to dive in. And to my surprise, I was pretty much the only one over here. Well, it has been a journey since that time. It has gone really, really fast because I only got the green light to cover the topic about 6 months ago. And that, in my country, that is, for the magazine I freelance for. So yeah, it has gone fast. Made new friends like my man Vin over there. But we've been supporting each other, the community. I met cool guys like you, Daniel. Yeah. And got to talk to really interesting people, key players in the disclosure traject. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's really, I'm so glad to hear that the magazine you were freelancing for greenlit the story. I think that's something that a lot of people maybe forget, is that no matter how interested people can be, at the end of the day, these newspaper, magazine, they have an editorial team and they need to okay the journalists looking into it. So I think when you see these companies start to greenlight stories like that, that really starts to, I think, have like a cascading effect where the more people get interested in it, the more okay they're writing about it. But then the more it's written about, the more people learn about it.
For sure. And by the way, I had been nagging my editor-in-chiefs for several magazines and papers for a long time. Yeah. But they declined all the time until 6 months ago. There was a new editor-in-chief, and he gave me the green light, and he's a cool guy. And I don't know if he realizes it, but he has been very important in Holland for covering this topic. I don't think he still knows what he has done. So I'm going to try to explain it to him anytime soon.
That's fantastic. And Vinnie, I know we had a brief conversation before about how the UK seems to be a bit behind on this topic, but I did see that GQ just profiled Elizondo. Have you noticed a shift? Is the media maybe talking about it a little more than obviously the Parliament is, or is it still kind of, for the most part, not really talked about in the public sphere?
It's talked about a little bit. It's not so much with the broadsheet newspapers, it's more with the tabloids. And we've been engaging them with myself and the guys at UAP Media UK just to at least get the correct information to run stories with facts, or instead of just wild hearsay. It's very clickbaity in the tabloids. So yeah, we've been trying to push them in the right direction a little bit. If we can get to the broadsheets next, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's kind of, I think, one of the goals of your organization you do a lot of work for, is that UAP Media UK. Is that the name I'm getting right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. What could you talk about them for a little bit?
Yeah. I guess the main goal is really just to speak with people within the government, within the intelligence community, MOD, academics, science professionals, all sorts of people, really, just to let them know that there's a place where they can come to get information if they're curious or they want to talk about the topic or do something with it, report it or things like that. We recently sent out a load of letters to members of the House of Lords, the Defense Select Committee, Intelligence Committee, even some of the royal family we've been engaging with, and the Admiral of the Fleet, the Space Agency. So hopefully we're going to start seeing some movement or some discussions had, but it's still early days.
Right. Yeah, wasn't it? I think someone in the royal family was interested in UFOs, weren't they? Am I making that up?
Yeah, Prince Philip, the Queen's husband, who obviously recently passed away.
Right.
He's known to have been quite into the subject, but I think Prince Charles, Prince William, I think they've got some curiosity towards it. So yeah,
that's great. Have you heard any responses yet, or just? I know you just send out just letters now, and sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, it was a couple of weeks ago all the letters went out. I've been engaging with some health professionals who contacted me recently. They're clinically registered within the NHS here who have an interest in the subject from more of a mental health side of things, how the subject will affect people, whether it's post-disclosure, whether it's people that have possibly had experiences, so that's good to have people contact us and be willing to engage in conversation regarding the subject. So it's good.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes time for officials to reach. I think only now are some people getting back responses from when they reached out during the big phone home too. And that was, I don't know, with the pandemic time is formless, but it feels like at least a few months ago at this point. So it takes time. Things government move slowly. Well, Max, I had a question for you about you recently went to San Marino and you got to follow Elizondo around. I believe you filmed this presentation, plus got to just kind of take in the whole scene there. I think that could potentially, if the plans from that event pan out, could be quite a historic event. And I'd love for you to just dive in a bit on what they were doing there, what the plan is, and maybe what you saw and how it's going.
Well, it is very ambitious, but these men, they are going to need our help, though. They are trying to set up an international UAP community over there, or let's say like a European Union for UAP in San Marino. It's a very ambitious plan, but it's not easy to pull off, though. So there's going to be a lot of support needed. So this is basically led by ICER, Italy, and of course the whole ICER Europe. So they combined forces finally. Mr. Elizondo was there. I think there were a lot of good, very fruitful meetings between certain individuals, and I have good hopes. I think it could be amazing. Actually, it's very good for disclosure and see what is happening right now. The U.S. Senate, the U.S. government is moving more forward. Like, it's baby steps, but a lot of things are moving at the moment, which makes me excited. For example, the Galileo project, Mr. Elizondo, Mr. Mellon, collaborating with Professor Loeb. I think that is huge. To me, that's huge. But
it's been interesting the last few weeks seeing all these organizations kind of start to intermingle, which I guess is kind of a perfect segue into this recent proposal by Senator Kristen Gillibrand. I hope I'm saying her name right. This was talked about yesterday on UCR show as well, but I think it absolutely is worth going over again and really getting it in your guys' perspective as well, because I think it's a really, really big deal.
it is.
And I guess there is a lot of noise on the internet about it, but I think the media hasn't quite caught on yet. But I think it's not legislation that's been passed yet, but it has been proposed. And just the act of proposing such legislation from someone who we'd never had heard from before about this topic, even though she does sit on both committees, I think is really telling. It's got language that talks about making this new organization, ASRO. I forgot what the acronym stands for, but and then in addition, having a scientific advisory board that does bring on the people you just mentioned, the Galileo Project, and folks from the SCU, and I believe the AIAA, which is an aeronautical association that just recently had a forum amongst their many forums they have every few years about UAP. So I just kind of wanted to pick your brains, guys, for a bit. Upon first reading about this information, did anything jump out at you?
I mean, just the fact that it's talked about, and there's so many different little points within the amendment. So the fact that they are setting up, it's the Anomaly Surveillance and Resolution Office, is great. It resonates with things that we've heard from Chris Mellon before. But then with the Aerial and Transmedium Phenomena Advisory Committee being part of that with Galileo Project, AIAA, SCU, I think is great that they are being advised by outside entities and not just keeping it within the intelligence community. It's good to hear that there may well be unclassified reports as well as classified. We thought for the next few years we were not going to get anything publicly. It's nice to see the FAA, NOAA, NASA, the DHS, and the Department of Energy all being included as well. So yeah, that's really good. I think it's interesting, And so one big point that stood out, of course, being in the UK, is the coordinating with the allies. It's good to hear that there'll be discussions happening over this sort of side of the pond.
Right, which is perfect segue. Christopher Plain, amazing science writer with The Debrief, hilarious guy. Any plans by the UK government to start taking this issue more seriously? Have you heard any rumblings of any response? I mean, it's very recent, and maybe too soon for that. But
yeah, I think it is too soon. But this amendment, if it hits the media, especially over here, there could be some conversations beginning to happen. I don't like to set my expectations too high when it comes to things like this. It all sounds and looks great, but of course, I don't want to be disappointed. So it's sort of one step at a time, baby steps, as Max said.
Right. I mean, we're not at the finish line by any means, and while this is an interesting event that was unexpected, I never expected to see legislation like this anytime soon.
Sure,
it isn't passed; it's just proposed, and a lot of amendments are proposed every year for this NDAA, this National Defense Authorization Act, the budget for how the government pays for everything for the year. So a lot could go wrong, no need to celebrate yet, but baby steps and progress is progress. Max, if you're good, do you have any immediate thoughts? I know you just kind of looked over this a little bit just recently, but anything that jumped out at you while you're reading about it?
What jumped out? Well, it is something that was already happening, because, of course, after the 180 days ultimatum, basically every 90 days something is going to be disclosed, or there's going to be reports coming out. So to me, this is very, I love this is happening, and it looks like, it's moving forward faster. That is basically what jumped out to me. That it's more hands-on, more people getting involved. So that means the topic is getting more and more respect, I guess, from the Senate, which is a great development, because there was this little civil war going on all the time, and nobody's talking about the friction anymore. There's no more military men and women and political figures, fighting in the streets. They leave each other alone, and it looks like we get to focus on science and disclosure and forces collaborating. So look, that is basically what it says to me. And more names. There's more names involved, so I like it.
Yeah, I think it's important to note. And Christopher Plain totally called me out. Now stop reading. Look at the camera, Daniel. I know the computer's here, so I'm looking at your guys' faces, but my camera's up here, so it's something I got used to. Thank you, Christopher. Yeah, I think it's a great point, Max. I mean, how long ago was it just a conversation about is this actually real, and how do we get our pilots to report this without fear of stigma? And now that's not even really a part of the conversation now. Now there's legislation about how best to go about this in a scientific manner and how to pull in both people from the Department of Defense and the intelligence agency. Because I know that one of Mellon's primary concerns from the initial language, I think that came from Ruben Gallego for the House, because there's now 4 versions of of legislation from different people kind of addressing this topic.
Right.
Was that he was worried a Department of Defense specific office wouldn't be able to really do its job, especially if it wasn't someone with a high enough ranking. And the language really does seem to suggest that Mellon had a very direct hand in this one, because most of his criticisms were absolutely included in this one. And in something I think that I haven't seen too many people talk about is I know amongst the conversations of people who's just, are trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Why is our government talking about this, but not really being clear about it, kind of leaving things out in the air for us to really infer, or for many people, I'm sure, to go down conspiracy rabbit holes. There still is a question from some saying, well, what if this isn't UFOs at all? What if this is our government just trying to figure out drone incursions or at near peer adversary technology? And it's been mentioned a few times, but it's very clear in this language how whatever they are trying to figure out it is showing. I mean, I think I have a quote here somewhere where it's give me one moment, because I think it's actually pretty impressive. Crucially, it just this office they created directs the office's pursuit of scientific theories to account for characteristics and performance of unidentified aerial phenomena that exceed the known state of the art in science or technology, including in the areas of propulsion, aerodynamic control, signatures, structures, materials, sensors, countermeasures, weapons, electronics, and power generation. So these aren't just your own fancy DJI drones or near peer technology Chinese drones. If they are adversarial, apparently they are very advanced. And if they're ours, why are we creating a task force to figure out what they are, or an office to figure out what they are? So to me now, I feel like we've kind of left that part of the conversation. We're no longer talking about, oh, are these just Russian and Chinese drones that are getting a little too feisty with us, and we don't want to talk about it because, geopolitical reasons. And I'm sure that is an element, and I'm sure that's happening. But this bill language seems to be very specifically talking about things that, whatever they are, we cannot account for their technology exhibited. And so really, whether that's something out there or Russia or China, seems to be a pretty big problem that should be addressed. As if stated, rambling for a bit.
Sorry, you just cut out there. I didn't hear that last part.
Oh, I was saying, do you guys have anything to add to that? I've been rambling for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a couple of points in the wording of the amendment which really did focus on looking at the technical operational characteristics, and then origins and intentions of what these objects are. And then, we've heard about geospatial intelligence and all the collections within the intelligence agency, but to hear now the nuclear connection with the chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission being involved, it just keeps building and building from what we saw with HR 4350, I think it was, which I think this is the amendment for. It's quite confusing, but yeah, I think it's good that we're seeing more and more areas added through like multidisciplinary approaches, I suppose.
Yeah. Well said. Max, anything to add to that?
Sure. Well, I do think to rewind a little bit, it's very interesting, this development that we're not talking about if UAP is real, but that now developed on what the hell is it, which is, to me, that's huge profit for the topic, right? So we're not, saying that dude is crazy, don't listen to him. Or that group of people. No, let's together see what the hell this is. Apparently there's something. Now, to get back to the characteristics and what it is and what we are looking at. Yeah. So if it's adversarial, sorry, English, help me.
Adversarial. Yeah, you were on it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Not an English native. So yeah, I do think you can never disqualify it not being ET. But you also have to take into account we still don't know what the hell this is.
Yeah.
The human beings have the reflex to try to explain everything and explain it in a human way. So if there's something, it could be an enemy, it could be something the other has and we don't have. But I think we should think out of the box, right? And I hope people are going to do that. And that's why I'm so excited for scientists to pull their weight finally and, have a real good look. And look, if it turns out not to be ET, I'm fine with that, actually. And everybody should be. Mm-hmm. It's about what is it?
Well said. It's this happens a lot, I think, especially on an online space where, nuance can be hard to express. But the second I feel it's so easy to go from, I want to know what these things are to being asked to defend why you think it's aliens or something. And there doesn't have to be that extreme. I think the only thing that needs to be acknowledged right now is, for all intents and purposes that we're able to tell, we don't know what these are. And I think just wanting to find out that's all that needs to that's the only place we need to be right now. We don't need to make assumptions or guess, or we don't have the data. I mean, everyone's just guessing out here in the online world. Perhaps in the classified world, they have more information. I'm sure they have more information available to them, but we don't. So all we can do is kind of shrug and look around and be like, look, I don't know what it is, but it's weird.
Yeah. Well, I do think, a little like in a slow drop, little pieces of the puzzle are now, are being extended to us, by our own research, maybe, or what is being disclosed. But these are small pieces of a really, really big puzzle. And maybe we cannot finish that puzzle in this lifetime. But maybe we can, and I'm excited for that, and I hope to live to that day.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot has happened in 3 years. I got to say. I mean, I only started honestly looking into this topic about a year and 2 months ago, and it's been a whirlwind. So
sure,
who knows? Who knows? Gosh, there was something else. Vinny, did you want to add anything to that? I'm trying to remember there was another thing I really wanted to bring up with you folks about this specifically.
No, really. I mean, just to finish off talking about the bill amendment, I think that it's, like I mentioned, being over here in the UK, it's important to have this global approach, really. If the UK, and not just the UK, we've recently seen that Australia kind of are on the same playing field as the UK. We saw their Senator Wish Wilson discussing or asking questions of the chief of the Royal Australian Air Force in the Australian Parliament. They're starting to ask questions. We saw it here with the House of Lords back in the summer. So I think if this bill gets passed, great. I think the UK and that will follow suit in being a bit more open, but it'll take a big step like the US taking the lead, unfortunately, for that to happen.
Right. It does seem everyone is kind of waiting to see what the U.S. does and following in its lead. And there's no reason to expect that, given the momentum. I mean, this all started when Elizondo, according to the New Yorker, Elizondo's successor, once he resigned in 2017, apparently was very successful in getting a lot of powerful people's attention, including the committees, as well as people in the Joint Chiefs, I believe in the National Security Council, and getting their attention. Someone in the Armed Services Committee had said in the classified portion of the NDAA of the time, hey, keep looking into this, which then turned into Marco Rubio asking for the report, which is now looking at multiple people of power either giving very positive statements about looking further into the topic or writing the legislation that we're seeing. So it seems the momentum is very much in our favor, and so far hasn't really slowed down. Politics just doesn't move in Twitter time, right? So these things like this take time, but honestly, given what has occurred in the time that it's occurred, I think things have moved so fast. And there is one, I remember now what I wanted to bring up. There is one thing that I've kept on hearing and talking to certain journalists and certain people is that there are those who believe that because who feel this is supporting their idea, because the recent bill language was so similar to that of Mellon, that so much of this is just a product of not just a lobbying effort, because I think there has been a lobbying effort, but that I believe the actions in which they're basing the information in which they're basing this legislation on may be misinformed or have holes in it, or be the work of people who maybe are more personally interested rather than basing it off of actual evidence. My criticism for that has always been that it requires a lot of assumptions, and we don't really know who is doing the briefing and what these briefings contain. But then also, if it's true, doesn't that also become a very big newsworthy item? You know, our highest ranking leaders are apparently being fooled by some people who are super into UFOs. I mean, what do you guys think about this? This seems to be the leading kind of theory behind a lot of this for people who really don't think there's not necessarily that there's nothing to the UFO topic, but that this current wave of news is nothing but a product of some people who are super into UFOs and the government.
Yeah, the thing is, I struggle when people use the blanket term government. I mean, I think if you look at the amount of people the government employs in the US, I think I might be right, something like 24 million if you look at local, state, and federal. So to just use the term government, there are probably entities and little pigeonholes here and there that are gatekeepers, secret keepers, who probably don't want this information out, but we just don't know. So, you know, this is why I don't get too excited, because it could all come to a grinding halt in the next month or two. We don't know. So, yeah, I've got to be aware of all aspects of possibilities of where it could come undone. I think everyone needs to be as well. It's very easy to get excited about all the great things said in that amendment, but until we see it actioned and we see some results, or whether it be, public reports, again, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. It's good to be open to all possibilities. Yeah.
Max, anything to add for you?
Well, yeah. People who are super into UFOs in the government are dictating the course, the discourse. I'm not sure about that, man. These are very highly educated people, very well trained. So I don't think dudes who are into UFO smoke joints are dictating the government's discourse or the course they're going. Not buying that. I think these are these men are in these positions because of a reason, and that's not because they're into something. But I do think there's a reason for this to be public since a couple of years, and that is simply, I think, a part of the government is with in Holland we have a saying, it's that with the hands in the hair, you don't know what to do. It's like you're pulling out your hair.
Right.
And so I think they literally need the general public's help. And this help is very tactical because of small dudes like me who are covering this in my small ass country. Or Vinnie, well, he has a huge Instagram I'm horribly jealous of. But But it's these small guys who are actually very helpful in pressuring other government officials for acknowledging this problem. And now these secret services who are on their own little islands, who are not communicating, who are operating by themselves, have to talk to each other, either to just ignore or deny this is a thing, is something they investigate. But now the government has been pressuring them, and the result is, and that is, to get back to all these forces collaborating right now, you see them all starting to communicate, and this is huge. This is this is something that is very helpful, because now all this information they have is going to be shared. It's going to be centralized.
Right.
And, maybe the one organization has something the other one doesn't, and vice versa. And, now it all starts to pile up. And I was talking with the puzzle metaphor, but it's, it's getting together more and more and more. And whatever is going to come out of this, it's going to be very interesting.
Right. And the legislation from multiple, I think, sources, at least two of them, asks for not just the recent UAP related data, but all of the data that could be related to UAP, period, is supposed to be sent to them. So that includes, obvious events like Roswell, of course, I'm sure, things like that. But, for decades, we're talking about 70, nearly coming on 80 years of information. I don't know how you're going to enforce that or check on that. But at the same time, if that legislation does pass, do you really want to be that person in that intel agency who is sitting before, the Senate Intelligence Committee and under oath having to answer as to why you didn't share the thing that existed? So I do think we have a very good chance of getting a much clearer, maybe not we, but at least the Senate committees, because who knows how much of this will be unclassified, will have a much clearer picture of what is going on. Because I think that is what's happening, is that I think they're starting to realize, oh, there's something going on here. I'm going to find out. Electron Gap has a question here. Are film TV producers intentionally, oh no, where'd it go? All right, we'll come back to you, sir. We're going to go Michael Huntington's question. Oh, no, here it is. Electron Gap. Are film TV producers intentionally feeding us or subconsciously picking up on future events, coincidence, or both? For example, Travelers features a plot of time travel and global disaster prevention. I have thoughts, but I'll let you two. I'll let you two speak first.
I think there's just so many possibilities of what this could be, that some TV shows and that, go down a certain route. The time traveler thing is a big theory. Look at the work of Dr. Michael Masters. He's a big proponent for that. He follows that thing. You might get a TV show that has a completely different direction and angle on it. So probably coincidence. What else could it be? They can't see the future.
Well, it's not just films, it's also literature. Orwell's book 1984, right? A lot of what's in there turned out to become reality. It's interesting how that works, and it's fascinating to me too. Can't explain it, but there's a lot of films, for example, that really, what is happening today in what we are actually are witnesses to. It's for example the Lazar story, the hand copying thing, or the hand scan machine,
right.
And what was it again?
It was on a TV show of some kind, or something.
Close Encounters, wasn't it?
Close Encounters, yeah, I think so. The Spielberg one, it was. It's stupid things like that, but you're like, okay, that looks from the. Was that in that movie? Okay, how did that happen? But it's still very suggestive to think. Yeah, no, it was intentional. I'm not sure, but I do think it's funny, and I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's intentional in the sense that, what is there someone? What, from the intelligence agencies talking to the film producers about putting these ideas in? As someone who, I'm an actor, and so, and I dabble in writing. I wouldn't call myself a writer, but I try. I think it's human imagination. We wonder about it. Anyone who look at Back to the Future. It's time travel is a thing we've always wondered about, and science fiction. It's a very popular topic. We clearly can show that time travel is possible, quote unquote, moving forward, thanks to the theory of, general relativity. And who knows about other things? Time travel is this whole black hole that we can go down, especially given some recent comments by, Ross Coulthart and Frank Milburn. Have been talking to some sources who apparently have that as a leading theory, which, I don't know what to make of, because it's hard. I trust that they're being told that. And so then my brain goes to, okay, do they think that? Are they messing with these people? Which I don't think so. Or I don't know. My brain shuts down, because I'm like, what do you make of that? Because I don't see any evidence of that. What makes them think that? Are they just super into the idea, don't have corroborating evidence? Or is there actually something there to go for it? Or are they crazy? I don't know. But sorry, there was a comment that just popped up, Aaron. I don't know if you want to find it again or tell me what it was about. I totally missed it.
Which one? There were several.
Well, Michael Huntington came first, but then there was one that just came on now that was, let's go through them. Let's hit them up. I don't want to ignore the people.
I think that was the most recent one I did.
Yeah, well, I personally think Encounters of the Third Kind is a movie made to see how the public would react to the idea of other beings. Steven Spielberg certainly did his homework. That character based on Jacques Vallée and Hynek as an advisor.
True.
Most definitely. Spielberg clearly was into the topic back then. And John Music, didn't Mr. Elizondo mention it could also be partly very ancient pre-cataclysm beings that survived and are still watching us, sort of Atlanteans' descendants from before 12,100 years ago? I'm not familiar with that, but maybe one of you three.
Yeah, he's hinted at, maybe not so specific as pre-cataclysm, but he's talked about potential crash retrievals, which are more likely found in archaeological digs and things like that. We know he doesn't go into detail on any of those things, so it's kind of left for you to kind of, I suppose, believe or decide what you want to think about those kind of things. For me personally, you leave it on the table with everything else until we have more information, data, or evidence. Right. Yeah. I know that upsets some people because they think, well, why should you even say that with that on the table? But, and I get that, I guess. But at the same time, at what point if we don't know the answer, we have to entertain the possibilities, right? And Michael Huntington, Keenan Blumenthal were into UFOs. Elizondo was into UFOs. Mellon was into UFOs. Davis was into UFOs. Pudoff was into UFOs. Bigelow, Knapp, Reid, DeLong. I think what he's getting at. Christopher Plain. Jacques Vallée was a consultant on Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Francois.
He was.
I'm going to butcher that name. Chauffeur? Is anyone more cultured than me able to say that name better? Played a character in the movie. Yes, that actor. Exactly. Right. Exactly. That character was based on Jacques Vallée. And I think Huntington brings up an interesting point. The alleged Hollywood cabal conspiracy that is acclimatizing society for disclosure has been around since the 60s. The conspiracy has been around since the 60s. Right. I think Huntington brings up a good point that people, I think, are hesitant. That's a good point, but a point that's worth addressing is that people are hesitant sometimes because these people are interested in UFOs. But I will push back a little bit and say Elizondo, I believe, had no interest in UFOs, according to him, before he was pulled on to the topic. And, I do sometimes wonder whether the astronomer who first maybe came up with the theory of dark energy, he's not, do we lambast him because he's into astronomy? This is already a very stigmatized topic, and why would someone be publicly talking about this? They probably already weren't into it. So it's a bit of a chicken before the egg, in my opinion. But I don't know. What do you two have to say about that?
Well, I want to elaborate on Hollywood a little bit. Just to rewind a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Hollywood plays a role in, let's say, whatever the government wants the general public to feel, an emotion, right? They did it in the Cold War.
They did.
Mm-hmm. There were like hundreds of movies with evil Russians trying to take over the world.
Project Mockingbird's a thing for sure.
Sure, yeah. Rambo, we destroyed those Russians in Afghanistan. Did a great job. But the Nazis, the World War II movies. There's a huge part of manipulating the general public with a emotion or an idea or something the government wants people to feel or experience. So if you remember the 90s, at some point, a lot of science fiction things were very popular. You had X-Files, you had what's the movie called? Men in Black.
Right.
You had
Independence Day.
Independence Day, definitely my favorite, by the way. No, so they didn't have anyone to fight anymore. There were no more Russians to fight. There were no more Nazis to fight. No more Vietnamese to fight.
Right.
Let's fight the damn aliens. So I'm not sure what it is, but I do like to philosophize on the idea that Hollywood could and can and is being used to, let's say, condition the general public to something that's about to come or happened, right? So I'm not disqualifying that theory. And now I'm going to shut up to you guys.
No, that's a good point, because I feel that, especially, maybe not so much these days, we're just saturated with all genres of movies, and especially within the ET thing. But if you talk about when Michael Huntington mentioned the 60s, if you look probably before a little bit to the 50s and 60s, the whole flying saucers, alien movies were just thrown into popular culture in a huge way. I think a lot of people learn about aliens and that from that sort of era, and it was a very narrative driven as well then. Right. It's always a specific type of flying saucer and a certain storyline and script to those movies. If you look at, well, there's so many you can look at, to be fair. So yeah, I think it was more prominent then really than it is now.
Right. I mean, and John Music, I saw your super chat. Oh, there it is. Thank you so much for supporting us. I really appreciate that, John. Thank you for the $5 super chat. What would it take for the government to at least admit the very tip of the iceberg, which is that this is largely non-human in origin? I'm going to think about that. I'll let you guys know. Yeah.
It's almost like they have, in a way, because they've said that it's not the US's tech. A lot of people are pretty much saying it's unlikely to be Russia or China. I mean, how much of the tip of the iceberg are we talking? It's kind of, it's whoever's perspective you're looking at it in, largely non-human. I'd say it's already been done. But again, that's my way of looking at it. I don't know. It's open to interpretation.
And Max, you said they don't know. Is that what I heard you say?
That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they say. But I agree with Vinnie. There's been a lot of suggestive commenting, or a little nudge in a certain direction. There were very subtle hints, and it's more like a deduction they do. It's not this, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that. So what's left on the end of the equation? You can only say it has to be damn ET now. But they still don't admit to anything and leave it all open. So there's a lot of suggestive talk, there's a lot of shoving in certain directions, and I do think there's a bit of the conditioning going on. That's my favorite word of the day now, conditioning. And so I agree with Vin. They kind of admitted to it, but not in not literally,
not directly.
Not directly. Sorry. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think they have. I agree with you to the point where I think a lot more people should be, what? DJ Record Scratch. You look at just that interview with Bill Nelson, the NASA administrator, when asked, what do you think these things are? And his answer was, I don't know. But, and then he goes into why he thinks there are aliens out there. That sounds to me like a tip of the iceberg. And while it's his personal opinion, he has been briefed both as a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee at the time, and then it was confirmed he was briefed as the NASA administrator. Plus, you have that amazing interview with the former Secretary of the Navy, Mabus. Tim McMillan did a great piece on the debrief. It's a 3-part piece with the 4th one coming out sometime, where the Secretary of the Navy, on the record, Just like, yeah, these UFOs were a problem, but we just didn't know what to do with them. And, we had bigger problems. We were worried about war. These things weren't really fighting us. And then you have the Secretary of the Air Force just recently, his statement when asked about it, saying, yeah, the phenomenon, we really have to convince me that it's a threat to us for us to really worry about it. But the way he phrased it, I remember him talking about like beings and non-human. The way he phrased it, I remember thinking, why would you say it like that? You are so hinting. So this is kind of this is what drives me crazy. This is what motivates, I think, me so much in this space is just, I think this leaving it open, as you say, Max, is so problematic because people can take that and run with it and do whatever they want with it. And
look, Daniel, there's also been government officials of, for example, countries like Israel. You had the space program director,
right?
Very highly respected Chaim Eshed, and Chaim claimed there's a galactic federation on, what was it, Mars or the moon, between humans and alien races. Look, that's a wild statement from a very high profile dude.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so did a former, I think, Minister of Defense of Canada, Paul Hellyer, who just passed. But those two were claiming the same damn thing. Those are some wild statements. So okay,
they are.
Are they all trying to sell their book? No, I don't think so. But you know what? If you go, I think you should go with like the current leadership. What are they, giving us? Or what are they dishing out? It's not a lot actually. Look, you are reciting some military officials. Yeah, some of them talk, say something, and they will probably retract it at some point or bagatelize it or whatever. But yeah, I still need more, right? I need a current government official to say, we don't think this is earthly. We think it's extraterrestrial. Deal with it, human beings.
Absolutely. I don't think that has reached a level of standards of journalism in terms of corroborating and evidence for us to say with any kind of confidence. But it's certainly in a weird place. And that's, I think, why I'm so weirded out. But G. West, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Obama's attitude towards the subject went from joking about it during his presidency to seriously talking about it this past year. You're right. He was on a late show with James Corden, and he joked about it a bit, but then said, no, seriously, there are things within our air that we can't explain, moving in ways we can't explain. Yeah, that's crazy.
Actually, I think it was Stephen Colbert just throwing in.
Was it Stephen Colbert? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Colbert then.
No, it was James Corden.
Oh, it was Corden?
It was James Corden?
It was,
I
yeah.
think he talked about it on Colbert as well. You know what? I know what it was. Colbert said, he asked about the UFOs, and Obama said, I can't tell you.
That's right. And then Colbert said, I'll take that as a yes.
Exactly. But I do think, fingers crossed, who knows, but I think we're on the precipice of maybe, I don't see how Gillibrand can make the proposal she did and not expect journalists to look at that and be like, yo, what the hell is this? What are you talking about? Why did you write this? What do you know? Why are you writing this? I mean, I don't see hopefully if journalists do their job, that just seems like for someone who has not been following this topic at all. Can you imagine reading that? And I mean, it's written like someone who's been very in depth into this topic and knows exactly a lot of the questions to ask. Can you imagine reading that from your senator and thinking this is bananas? What is going on? I can't imagine a journalist not asking. So hopefully there'll be statements from her soon. We have that forum tomorrow, I believe, at Cathedral. That fingers crossed we'll have Avril Haines, who's the director of national intelligence there. Her name was on there, but then a different link didn't have it on there anymore. So I hope she didn't.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Because I think some more on the record statements from her would really help. But yeah, I feel like the government has been dancing around this topic for quite some time the last few years, but also is still saying some things that really don't make sense. I mean, they make sense. I mean, they make sense in the sense that, I know where my brain's going, but I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I'm just impressed they've been able to straddle this line for so long, being able to say these things that they're saying without people following up and be like, hold on, what do you mean? Can you elaborate that? Because we're playing Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Donnie T. In my lifetime, every non-Bush president has discussed UFO at some point. That's a good point. It's a very good point. I mean, yeah. I mean, Mac. I mean, I'm talking all about American government. And I know you guys aren't Americans, so I'm sorry, but
that's okay.
Nobody's perfect.
No, I think Americans are far from perfect. If any can show. I'm curious. While the topic hasn't had a lot of support so far from either the UK government or the Netherlands, have there been people ever outspoken that you know of in the past about it, or has it really just been under lock and just not really been talked about?
It's not been talked about much here in the UK. The thing is, when we had this thing with the House of Lords in the summer where they just said, look, we're not looking into it anymore. We don't consider it a national security threat. Straight out blanket statement. Was like, what? That is crazy. And I did not believe it for 1 second. So right now I'm looking into past UFO policies with regards to the MOD from sort of the 90s and the 2000s and sort of seeing, well, this is how serious you were taking it a decade ago. And now not at all. Doesn't make sense. And I'm just going to try and sort of guess where it's at right now. It used to be ran within intelligence departments like DI-55, which I don't think really exists anymore. So I'm trying to sort of, where would it be? I'm just trying to sort of narrow it down a little bit without having the actual answers, just pure curiosity.
And that's what you were doing at the National Archives when you went to London?
That's right. Yeah. I had a stack of documents to go through. So I finally I spent the whole of today uploading them and archiving them into sort of years and stuff. So then I can really sit down and do a deep dive. And if I find something, I might be able to write up about it. We'll see. I'm hoping. I've already seen some little tidbits in there that are really interesting. So fingers crossed.
That's fantastic. Well, good luck on that. I mean, that sounds.
Thank you.
That's smart. I mean, there's precedent, right? You're showing precedent and you're showing it. They can't really argue with it when it's from their own documentation, right?
Exactly.
so no, you made quite a paper trail here. You definitely took this seriously 10 years ago. Why the change? Oh man, that's great. Well, we're running out of time here, guys. This hour really flew by. Is there anything else either of you want to bring up or leave it with? I'm sure we'll pick up this conversation again sometime soon. At this rate, we'll have plenty more to talk about in a few months. Who knows? Anything you want to say?
No, I mean, I just obviously want to give a shout out to all my colleagues at UAP Media UK. Without them, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. All the help and guidance and assistance and the group mentality and the way we work together, coming from different angles and stuff, is fantastic. They're all top guys. But I think also we talk about the Galileo project, SCU and that, but I want to give a shout out as well to all the guys at Skyfort who have yet to really be on the stage prominently, because I think they're doing some fantastic stuff behind the scenes, and hopefully in the new year they might come forward with some strategies and plans. So yeah, shout out to Sean and all those guys. Absolutely. And to Jake. Yeah, definitely. Max, you want to leave us with any parting words of wisdom?
Well, parting words of wisdom. I'm not a very wise man, but
I beg to differ, sir.
That's very kind, Daniel. Thank you. Parting words. Well, yeah, I kind of agree with Vin. It's I think the near future is gonna bring us a lot. For now, I'm working on a Galileo collaboration podcast, hopefully with a couple of the key figures.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it might be quite soon actually. So stay put. And so I'm excited for that, because I think that's very important, because it's going to be that's disclosure right there. Science, military, and politics combining forces. It's the triangle. So I have a million questions for them, but I will if it's going to happen anytime soon, of course, I will share it on my Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, that, and talking about making a documentary, I'm working on it.
Yes, it's a process, I am sure.
Yeah. All right.
You are hard at work.
Hey, Daniel, thank you, man.
Thank you, guys. And Vinny, I know you got to go somewhere else as well. So thank you so much for your time.
It's all good.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Perfect. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate your time. I think we had a great chat. And everyone, if for some other reason you're not have been watching Disclosure Team, Vinny's channel, or Max's, you're missing out. Honestly, they do fantastic work. Great interviews, really curious, intelligent questions, really inspiration for me. So definitely check their stuff out if you haven't, guys.
Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Absolutely. Aaron, anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. I'll just say a few orders of business, gents, but I don't need to waste any more of your time. So have a great rest of your day. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you. Definitely. Take care.
Bye, Daniel.
See you later.
Yes. Take care.
Bye now.
Ciao.
All right. Well, Aaron, I thought that was pretty cool.
That was an amazing conversation. I really, really enjoyed that.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Well, guys, thank you for coming to another episode of Known Quantities with myself, Daniel Miller, Aaron Desario, our MVP producer, and of course, for all of you in the chat for supporting and hanging out and furthering the conversation. I really appreciate you. Just a few orders of business to remind you all before we leave. We do have a podcast. Like I said, please rate, review, follow, like, and subscribe this video. If you haven't liked it yet, just move your mouse up, click like. It really helps the algorithm. Another reminder. Thank you, Chris. I do have a Patreon. Your support means the world to me. I will be adding new tiers very soon as well for those, because I think some more tiers will be helpful to those who, even $1 is great. It's very helpful for my time here, because this topic requires quite a bit of time to delve into, and so your support is very much appreciated. Thank you, DOS Tapes, for making me sound groovy as I talk our way out. Their link to their Bandcamp is down below. Don't forget the merch store. Thank you, BlueMarlinChronicles.com. And I think that's it, guys. We'll see you next week for another episode. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye, guys.
I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.